Welcome back to the show. It's party time in England right now. Today we are wishing His Royal Highness Prince George a very happy 10th birthday. On July 22nd, 2013, the world welcomed Prince George Alexander Louis of Wales. Mum and Dad were as proud as punch. As second in line to the throne, he was performing royal duties at just 9 months old. His first royal tour in 2014 saw him travel to New Zealand and Australia, stealing the show at every outing. 1 year later, George became a big brother, and he took the role like a pro. But there's no rest for royalty. There's always presidents to meet, balcony appearances to attend, brides to upstage, and cooking to be done. By the time baby Louis came around, George was practically an old hand, as we've seen him transform from a shy youngster to a dashing young man in front of our eyes. The path he's destined for has always been clear. Long live Prince George.
There you go. Well, to tell us how the Prince is celebrating his very first decade, we're joined by Associate Editor at the Daily Telegraph, Camilla Tominey in New York. Good morning to you, Camilla. What kind of birthday party do you have when you're turning 10 but you're a future king?
It's a very good question. And of course, this is being kept a closely guarded secret by the palace. So they'll only speak to the fact that there'll be a private celebration. Obviously, the press won't be let into that. But I'd imagine, I mean, if my kids are anything to go by, it'll probably involve doing something adventurous and copious amounts of cake, right? But we look at that portrait there. I mean, he looks very grown up. And that 10 years, I feel, I don't know how you guys feel, but it feels like it's gone in an absolute flash.
It does appear that way. Camilla, that photo, it's just been released, is that right?
Yeah, it's just been released. It's been taken by a lady called Millie Pilkington at, I believe, the couple's home, the family home in Windsor. Been smiling there, looking every inch the kind of pre-adolescent. I mean, that's how far we've come now. And we saw him take on all of that responsibility, didn't we, at the coronation when he was a page of honour to his grandfather, the king. It's been quite a busy year for the Wales family because we've had this kind of succession of major royal events, haven't we? Starting with the Platinum Jubilee last summer, then the Queen's death, then the coronation. So in many ways, the public have probably seen a bit more of Prince George, Charlotte and Louis than they might ordinarily. I think for William and Kate, it's trying to get this balance right between understanding that they've got a public presence and that the public wants to see them, but also, of course, protecting their privacy because they're still very young kids. They're still in primary school. There's him meeting the tennis players in the gentlemen's final at Wimbledon. He really enjoyed being in the royal box with Princess Charlotte. I mean, we've had these set pieces, haven't we? I'm just looking at this footage now of like 4 generations of monarchy, seeing him with the late Queen, with the now king, with his father. You know, to have 4 generations of monarchy in one room was quite rare because of the Queen's longevity. But obviously now he's moved one step up the pecking order. He's now second in line to the throne. His father's heir to the throne. You have to ask yourself, well, does it change much for him? He's only 10. I mean, the late Queen and indeed the King would have had special constitutional history lessons and things. But because these days royals have a conventional education, he might get a bit of extra training here and there. But he's very much just going to be looking up to his dad and looking up to Grandpa, really, for guidance.
I mean, I feel like we sound like the old aunties and uncles going, oh, I remember when you were born, you've grown
Him bashing
up
the
so
cake
quickly.
and the late Queen just like aghast. What are you doing?
But look, let's talk about how we've seen all the royal children so much in the past year, as you say. We know Louis is the cheeky one. Charlotte has a bit of sass about her. How would you describe George's personality?
Well, George, when you look at him, he does look quite thoughtful, doesn't he, on engagements? And sometimes it looks as if he's got the weight of the world on his shoulders. But people say he's actually a very confident little boy, very good at meeting new people. He's only really known quite recently his destiny. It was written by Robert Lacey, the royal author, in his latest book, that actually William and Kate only sat down with him around his 7th birthday, so 3 years ago, and sort of explained who his granny, his great granny Gangan, as they called her, was, and the significance of her role. And they sort of explained she's a very important woman, and your grandpa is a very important man, and your father one day will do his job, and you in turn will do your father's job. I mean, imagine as a parent having that conversation. But it's all about very, very gradually easing him into this. The thing about the royals is They're there for life. It's not like politicians where they serve a 4-year term and everything's done in a hurry. Actually, being a royal is a marathon, not a sprint. So what we're seeing is just the very gradual easing of him into royal engagements along with his siblings to make sure that they're not overawed by the occasion, but equally that they can enjoy as normal a childhood as possible.
So by way of extension, how do you think the Prince and Princess of Wales are doing that? Are they doing a good job? Knowing he is, of course, second in line to the throne, Camilla.
I think so. I mean, I think that the public's perception of them as the family is that, you know, they are bringing these children up to accept that they have this public role, but also they seem to be, you know, very well behaved, happy kids. And I don't think anybody, because of some of the mistakes that were made in the past with sort of bringing royal children up on the nursery floor, what we have in William and Kate are very hands-on parents. They do the school run themselves. They got all of the children now into the same school. They've moved to Windsor for a bit less of a goldfish bowl life because they felt living in Kensington Palace, they were a bit exposed. So they're trying to kind of balance what the children need to do as just being kids and enjoying school and enjoying life with what they have to do on the public stage. And before they take them to any engagement, guys, they don't announce it in advance. Remember somebody telling me this about the Platinum Jubilee, that they'll say, well, the kids may turn up, but they leave it up to the children. If the children aren't up for it, they don't drag them to things kicking and screaming. But actually, when it came to things like the Jubilee pageant, when you might remember Prince Louis was bouncing on the King's knee, the children really enjoyed that. They like going to the concerts, they like going to the sporting events. They understood that they had a role to play at the Queen's funeral and the coronation. So I think for parents, that they want to make sure if they're on display, that they can show the very best of themselves. They don't want them to have temper tantrums, but at the same time, I think the public
we can all relate to that, Camilla. We can all relate to that. Thank you.
Big birthday cake on the way. Thanks, Camilla Tominey in London.
Hey there, Today fans. Sarah and...
What's my name again?
Oh my God, Carl.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel, though. Subscribe now for more news, special reports and amazing Aussie stories.
And Carl misbehaving,
Whoa,
of course.
that never happens.
Always happens.
What's she talking about?
Always happens.